What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk yet again about the Last of Us TV show. I'm sorry about it. I don't plan it like this. I just kind of pick a story, every day. It's been a slow news couple weeks, and the Last of Us TV show has been the thing that's kind of popped off. So we're back to talk about it again because in Empire magazine, they gave kind of a brief synopsis of season 1 of the show. And they talked very briefly about season 2, that season 2 would reflect the second game. Now, you could be saying, well, Alex, no duh. Like, that's obvious. But to me, it wasn't obvious. And I want to go back. I actually did find the article a long time ago. I actually made a video on this, but I did find the article again to kind of remind myself. There was an article with the premier of Alberta, and his name is Jason Kenney. And back a while ago, he talked about the show, and he was talking basically about the renaissance that Alberta is having because of it, right? The economic upside of just all the stuff that's going on post the stuff around the world. And in it, he mentions that there's some sort, and he doesn't, it's not a known deal, but he has in his mind that this could go for 8 seasons. Now, I did see some people on Reddit talking about it's possible he's just comparing it to Game of Thrones. He's thinking, well, we have the revenue and all this excitement of The Last of Us filming here, and if it goes as long as Game of Thrones, well, Game of Thrones was gigantic, and Game of Thrones was 8 seasons, and if we could have it for 8 seasons for Last of Us, that'd be enormous, right? So there's a fine line of, is there internally at HBO some sort of handshake agreement where it's hey, obviously we got to go season by season, but we think we can get 8 years out of this thing, or 8 seasons out of this thing. Is that the case? Or is it, no, we're going to do 1 or 2 seasons. We're just going to take it kind of season by season and go from there. And this guy's kind of just making it up to make his, area that he governs over seem more popular. I mean, if you know politicians, it doesn't seem that surprising that he would kind of lie about that stuff, but not to throw shade at anybody in particular, but we don't know. We don't know. Now, with this news story, which I do think this Empire magazine, I don't think they're kind of just saying it just to say it. I do think there is some sort of idea that if there is a second season of The Last of Us, it will follow the second game, which doesn't, I would say, go all that well if you also believe in the 8 season thing, right? So if you believe that each Last of Us season is a game, well, you can't, I don't think you can believe in the 8 season thing because they're not going to get there. That's the thing that and there's nothing, I guess, wrong with it, but it's always been a question of mine for this Last of Us TV show where it's what do you do? Where do you go with it? Do you tell other stories in the world, which is fine, but people link The Last of Us, and probably rightly so considering how the games went, you link The Last of Us to Joel, Ellie, and then the second one, more like Ellie and Abby, right? That's how you think of really, Ellie is kind of the thing that keeps it going. So even if you make a Last of Us Part 3 game, which I think they will, if you don't have Ellie, I think you're going to have a lot of people, including myself, pretty upset. So you kind of pigeonhole, that's probably the right term, right? You pigeonhole yourself where can you tell stories of spin-off things? Well, yeah, I mean, Last of Us Factions or the Last of Us multiplayer that maybe comes out next year. Maybe that's what that is, right? You're telling stories of other clans. And, I mean, they did kind of start to do that with Last of Us Part 2, or different zones that were kind of set up. I guess even going back to Fireflies and Last of Us 1. But you could do that, but people think of The Last of Us as Joel and Ellie, or at least Ellie. So for the TV show, would it be weird to do Season 1 is the first game and Left Behind, because we know that. Season 2 is the second game. Season 3 is Last of Us 3. And you also run into an issue there as well, right? Because after the second season, you either have to spin off and do other things, other stories in that world, which honestly, it's a coin flip if people will care and follow you for that. It really is. You do not know that. And do you take that risk with such a high, production budget show? Or you make The Last of Us 3. The issue is the game's not out yet. You would run into, then, a Game of Thrones-like situation, and I don't think it would play over well specifically because of games. I think, even Game of Thrones didn't go over all that well with it kind of surpassing the books and writing its own story. I think more people fell in line with that, though, than I think people would hear. And it's just a guess, I suppose, but I would make the bet/guess that if you made The Last of Us Season 3 of the show and it told a third game before the third game came out, even if Neil Druckmann were to come out and say, hey, we're going to do our own thing, the show is now splintering. Like, it literally is just going to tell its own thing. We're going to do our own thing in the game, and they're two separate things. I still don't think that would go over well, and I think the show would actually start to and by the way, in a big part of even this discussion, the fact that if it is confirmation that the second season of The Last of Us show is the second game, you immediately are going to have potentially, an issue as soon as the second season, which is not something ideally that you would want. And again, it's not that crazy to, like, again, you could say, well, Alex, again, no duh, the second season was going to be the second game. I actually didn't think that, though. I actually thought you would start to insert stuff and maybe stretch it where the second game is maybe season 3 or season 4, because also then you would give yourself enough time to make the third game to be able to make that into the show for season 4, 5, 6, like to be able to kind of match it. If you're doing a game for a season, you immediately are going to run out. Well, firstly, you're going to run out. You're going to have to make the third season of the show most likely before the game is out. And then also, you're already, for season 2, going to enter controversial. And again, I'm not here to tell you that you're right or wrong with your Last of Us opinion, okay? In fact, it's an opinion. You can have it. But what I am here to tell you is factually, the second game is a split decision on fans. So it's fine if you hate the game. It's fine if you love the game. I don't really care. What I do care, or what I care to say out loud, is you are going to have immediately the second season where people say, oh, here we go. Here's here's the game that was so controversial with everybody put into a TV show. And I don't know if that's how you want to do your second season. Now, that could actually lead to like record-breaking numbers, or it could lead to it absolutely falling apart, right? And you wouldn't get a season 3. So it's tough. I mean, and I also do, by the way, I'm aware when I've made these past videos, there's several people in my community that don't care about the show whatsoever. They think it's going to fail. That is totally, again, I'm not here to tell you what to think. That's totally fine. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see if I like it or not. But the people, that say they're not into it at all, again, that's actually why I feel bad that all these videos have been on The Last of Us. Because I know it's a polarizing game. I also don't want to just talk about The Last of Us, but again, it's the way the news has turned out. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I'll see you all on the next one.